The Forgotten Mercy. The year was 2648. Space was no longer empty. Ships moved between stars like caravans once crossed deserts. Trade flowed. Wars happened. Treaties were signed. But there were still places no one dared to go, places marked in red on star maps. Captain Mara Vance stood at the viewing deck of the Odyssey, a long-range explorer vessel. Outside the window, a dying sun glowed weakly, its light spilling into the darkness like an old lantern. Mara's crew had been scanning deep space for new resource-rich asteroids when they caught something unusual. A distress beacon. It was weak, old, ancient even. The signal code matched a language no one in her crew had seen in their lifetime. But Mara recognized it. She had read about it in military archives as a cadet. It was Valorian. The Valorians were a race both feared and respected in galactic history. 200 years ago, during the Great War, they had humanity cornered. Earth had been weeks away from destruction. But for reasons still debated in classrooms and history forums, the Valorian High Council had stopped the attack. They had simply left. To most people, it was a mystery. To some, it was proof that mercy could exist, even among enemies. The Odyssey followed the beacon to its source, a ship drifting silently beyond charted space. Its hull was scorched, its once shining silver plates dulled by centuries. The name was written in curling alien script along the side, Varathion. "It's impossible," whispered First Officer Derek Hale, leaning over the console. "That ship vanished during the war. It should have been dust by now." Mara didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on the ship's image. Something about it felt wrong, not just because it was ancient, but because it was here, alone, in a sector where nothing should survive. They hailed the ship. No answer. The beacon kept pulsing in steady rhythm. Against protocol, Mara ordered a boarding party. The Odyssey locked onto the derelict and the airlock doors groaned open. The boarding team stepped into darkness. Inside, the air smelled stale, metallic. Walls were lined with murals, tall, proud Valorians in battle armor, holding banners of victory, but many were scratched over, as if someone had tried to erase the faces. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The power grid was almost dead, the emergency lights casting dim red glows that flickered like dying candles. Then they found the stasis chamber. It stood in the middle of a room like an altar. Frost covered the glass, but inside was the unmistakable shape of a Valorian male, tall, muscular, his skin a deep metallic blue. His armor was ceremonial, lined with gold patterns, and his face, Mara recognized it instantly from the old war hollows. Kareth, the Valorian commander who had given the retreat order, the one blamed by his own people for sparing humanity. "Captain," Derek's voice was tight, This is the one, the Mercy General." Before Mara could respond, the stasis chamber lights flared. The frost began to melt. A soft hum filled the room as ancient systems woke from their long sleep. Kareth's eyes snapped open. They were bright like molten silver. He took one deep breath, then another, his gaze darting around before locking on Mara. "You..." His voice was deep, heavy with an accent that made the words sound like they'd been carved in stone. "Human." Mara took a step forward. "You've been asleep for a very long time. We found your distress beacon." Kareth frowned, his eyes narrowing. "Distress? No. Warning." Before anyone could ask what he meant, the ship shook violently. Sirens blared through the Odyssey's comms. "Captain, multiple contacts just dropped out of FTL. No transponder codes. Closing fast." The voice of the Odyssey, as helm officer, rang out in panic. Kareth's gaze hardened. "They have found me, and now they will find you." Mara's hand instinctively went to her sidearm. "Who's they?" He looked at her with something between pity and resolve. "The ones who never forgave mercy." The Odyssey's hull groaned as something latched onto it from outside. Shadows moved beyond the viewports, sleek black shapes like hunters circling prey. Mara's crew exchanged tense glances. This was no ordinary rescue. This was a trap. One set centuries ago, now finally springing shut. And in the middle of it stood Kareth, the only living being who knew why humanity had been spared, and why someone now wanted that mercy erased from history forever. The man who should be dead. The Odyssey shook again, harder this time. The sound of metal scraping against metal echoed through the hull. Somewhere in the distance, crew members shouted over the comms, trying to keep systems online. Captain Mara Vance stood her ground, staring at the tall figure who had just stepped out of the stasis chamber. Kareth moved like a soldier, slow, deliberate, every motion controlled. His armor creaked with age, yet the man inside radiated power. He looked around the room, his gaze sharp and untrusting. "This is not a rescue ship," he said flatly. Mara crossed her arms. "We're explorers. We found your beacon by accident." Kareth tilted his head slightly. "There are no accidents in this part of space. If you are here, it means they are close." The ship trembled again. Red warning lights flashed. Derek Hale's voice came through Mara's earpiece. "Captain, we've got 3 ships locking weapons on us. Stealth hulls, no markings. Whoever they are, they're not here to talk." Kareth turned toward the sound, his expression grim. "Jar Dominion." Mara frowned. "Never heard of them." "You will," Kareth replied. "If they catch us, your crew will not live to see another sunrise." Without waiting for permission, Kareth strode to a nearby wall panel, pried it open with his bare hands, and began pulling out glowing crystal shards from the circuitry. Mara's hand hovered over her sidearm. "Stop! You don't touch my ship's systems without—" "These are not your systems," Kareth interrupted. "This ship's comm grid is broadcasting your location to the Dominion. Remove these or you will die here." Mara hesitated. He was a stranger, a man who by all rights should have been dead for 2 centuries. But there was something in his voice, not desperation, not fear, certainty. She gave a short nod. "Do it." The moment Kareth ripped out the final shard, the ship's lights flickered and the hum of the engines deepened. On the bridge, the helmsman reported, "Captain, we've just vanished from their targeting scanners." Kareth turned to Mara. "They will still track us by heat signature. We need distance, and we need it now." Mara narrowed her eyes. "Why are they after you? You've been in stasis for over 200 years. Why hunt you now?" Kareth's jaw tightened. "Because I carry something they fear." He reached into his armor and pulled out a small black cube etched with alien symbols. It pulsed faintly with blue light. "The memory core." Derek stepped closer. "What's on it?" Kareth's eyes met Mara's, and for the first time since waking there was a flicker of emotion, something between pride and sorrow. "The truth about the war, the truth about why I spared your people, and the truth about what humanity did before that." Mara felt her chest tighten. "Before that?" "Yes," Kareth said quietly. "Long before I gave the retreat order, your kind saved mine. You just never knew it, because my people erased it from history." The room went silent, except for the low hum of the engines. Before Mara could ask more, the ship lurched violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. A voice from the bridge shouted through the comm. "They've launched boarding pods. Impact in 30 seconds." Kareth's grip tightened on the memory core. "Then our time is over. If they take this, everything dies. Your truth, my name, and the only chance your world has to survive what's coming." Mara's instincts screamed at her. This was no longer just a rescue mission. This was the start of something much bigger. She drew her sidearm, locked eyes with her crew, and said the only order that made sense. "Seal the corridors. Arm up. If they want him, they'll have to get through all of us." Outside the Odyssey, black shapes clamped onto the hull like predators sinking claws into prey. The boarding alarms wailed. And somewhere in the shadows of space, the legend of a mercy given 2 centuries ago was about to be tested again. Whispers of the past. The first impact rattled the Odyssey like a struck drum. Metal screamed as the boarding pods dug into the hull. The sound carried through the ship's bones, a deep, awful groan that made even the veterans on the crew glance nervously at one another. Captain Mara Vance sprinted down the main corridor, her boots hitting the deck in sharp rhythm. Behind her, Kareth moved with silent precision, the black memory core gripped tightly in his hand. He wasn't out of breath. He wasn't panicked. If anything, he looked like a man who had been here before. Too many times. Boarding teams in sections C and F, Derek's voice barked over the intercom. They're cutting through the doors. Mara ducked into the armory, tossing rifles and shock pistols to her crew. Kareth took none of them. Instead, he pulled a strange double-bladed weapon from his back. The metal shimmered with a deep blue glow as if it remembered every battle it had ever fought. You fight with that? Mara asked, glancing at the elegant but ancient-looking weapon. Kareth's silver eyes locked on hers. I do not fight with it, he said calmly. I end with it. Before she could ask what he meant, the bulkhead ahead exploded inward. Smoke and sparks filled the corridor as armored figures stepped through the breach. Sleek black armor, no insignias, visors glowing blood red. The Jar Dominion had arrived. The first soldier raised his rifle. Kareth moved before Mara could even blink. One step forward, one sweep of his blade, 2 Dominion soldiers dropped without firing a shot. The rest fell back for cover, their shots sparking against the walls. Move! Kareth growled, grabbing Mara by the arm and pulling her toward the maintenance hatch. They ducked inside, crawling through narrow tunnels that smelled of oil and old wiring. The distant sound of gunfire and metal-on-metal clashes echoed through the ship. Mara's heart pounded, but Kareth's voice stayed steady. They will not stop, he said quietly. They have chased me for years. But now with you here, it is different. They know the core is awake. Mara frowned. You keep talking about this truth. If it's so important, why hide it for 2 centuries? Kareth didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, because your leaders were not ready to hear it, and my people were not ready to admit it. They emerged into the ship's engineering bay where Derek was trying to seal blast doors. His face lit up when he saw Mara, then froze when he saw Kareth. Captain, why is there a Valorian in my engine room? Because without him we're dead, Mara replied. Kareth stepped forward, placing the memory core on a console. This contains the day your world earned my people's mercy, long before the war, long before I was born. Derek crossed his arms. Earned? You mean we did something for the Valorians? Kareth's voice dropped, almost like he was speaking to himself. Not for my people. For my world. Mara looked confused. Your world? I thought the Valorians... A sudden alarm cut her off. The ship's sensors flared red. Derek checked the console and swore, Captain, we've got a Dominion destroyer coming out. It of stealth, right on top of us, bigger than anything I've seen before. Kareth's gaze sharpened. The Vorash. Their hunter flagship. If it is here, then the Dominion's high commander is here too. Mara felt the weight of his words. And I'm guessing that's bad news? Kareth's expression was grim. For you, it means they will take you alive. For me, they will make my death an example. The ship shook again, this time harder as the destroyer's magnetic clamps locked on. Kareth picked up the memory core, turning to Mara. We must leave this ship. Mara stared at him like he had lost his mind. Leave? In the middle of a boarding attack? How? His silver eyes narrowed. The same way your people saved mine, by running into danger no sane being would touch. Before she could respond, the engineering bay door blew inward. Smoke and sparks filled the air. Dominion soldiers poured in. Kareth stepped in front of Mara, blade raised. His voice was low but steady. Captain, stay behind me, and remember this moment, because soon you will understand why your world is more than just a survivor. It is a legend. And with that, the fight for the truth began. The price of mercy. The boarding alarms went silent, replaced by the deep, low hum of the Odyssey's emergency drives. Mara's hands were still tight on her rifle, her breath sharp from the fight. The Dominion soldiers had been pushed back, at least for now. But Kareth knew the truth. They will come again, he said, wiping dark streaks of alien blood from the edge of his blade. And next time, they will bring the numbers to break you. Mara turned to Derek. Options? He shook his head. Not many. The Vorash has us locked. Their tractor beams will pull us in before we can make a jump. Kareth stepped forward, his voice calm. Not if we hide where even the Dominion fears to follow. Mara narrowed her eyes. And where is that? Kareth pointed to the star map on the engineering console. A massive swirl of orange and crimson gases filled the display, an unstab. The gas giant known to pilots as the Howling Maw. It was famous for tearing ships apart with storms so strong they could crush steel. You want to hide inside that? Derek asked in disbelief. Kareth's silver eyes were steady. It is the only place their scanners will fail, and if your hull holds, we will have time to open the core. Mara didn't like it, but she didn't see another way. Do it. The Odyssey dived into the swirling clouds, its hull shuddering as the first wave of turbulence hit. Lightning arched across the ship's viewports, lighting Kareth's face in flashes of silver and shadow. The deeper they went, the darker it became, until the only light was from the consoles and the slow, rhythmic pulse of the memory core. They gathered in the briefing room. Kareth set the black cube on the table and placed both hands on it. Faint blue lines spread from his fingers like veins of light seeping through stone. This is not just history, he said quietly. It is the debt my people owe yours. The cube projected a hazy image into the air, shapes slowly sharpening into scenes. Mara saw Earth, but not the Earth she knew. The skies were darker, the oceans calmer. It was a time before humanity had even reached the stars. This was centuries before your first colony ship, Kareth began. A plague swept through the Veilorian homeworld. We had no cure. Our cities burned with sickness. Whole families vanished in days. Mara frowned. And humanity helped you, back then? Kareth nodded. Your kind did not even know our name. A survey vessel from Earth stumbled on our world by accident. Its captain refused to turn away. The hologram shifted, showing a small, outdated human ship landing among towering alien buildings. Figures in protective suits emerged, carrying crates. Inside were medical supplies, food, and something Mara didn't expect: children's blankets. Kar, Eith's voice grew quieter. They brought us warmth when we were freezing. They gave us medicine when we were dying. And when they left, they asked for nothing in return. No treaty, no alliance, not even a name recorded in history. Derek looked stunned. So your mercy during the war, it wasn't pity, it was repayment. Kareth's eyes darkened. Yes, but my people erased that truth. They feared it made us look weak, that we had once been saved by those we called primitive. Mara leaned forward. And the Dominion? They want the core destroyed, Kareth said, his tone sharp. Because if the galaxy learns the truth, it will shatter the power they hold. Mercy is dangerous to tyrants. Before Mara could answer, the ship lurched violently. An alarm wailed. Derek's voice came through the comm. Captain, the Vorash followed us in. They're cutting through the storms. Kareth's expression didn't change, but his grip on the core tightened. Then they are willing to risk death to silence us. That means they are afraid. Lightning split the clouds outside, illuminating the enormous shadow of the Dominion flagship. Its weapons began to glow. Mara turned to her crew, her voice firm. We've got one chance. Protect the core at all costs. Kareth's eyes met hers. If we fail, your people will lose more than history. You will lose the only proof that mercy can be greater than fear. And then, the first blast hit. The betrayal. The Odyssey shook like it had been struck by a giant's fist. The blast from the Vorash lit up the inside of the gas giant, turning the swirling clouds into waves of fire. The crew clung to their stations, fighting to keep the ship stable. Shields at 20%, Derek's voice cut through the comm, strained with panic. Another hit like that, and we're finished. Mara gritted her teeth. Keep moving. Use the storm as cover. Kareth stood in the middle of the bridge, the memory core clutched against his chest. His eyes never left the display showing the Dominion flagship glow. Sing in. They will not stop firing until I am ash in the void, he said calmly, almost as if he had already accepted it. Mara was about to reply when a crackle of static broke through the comm. A voice, female, unfamiliar, spoke with icy confidence. Captain Vance, this is Commander Serac of the Jar Dominion. Hand over the Veilorian traitor in the core, and your crew will live. The bridge went silent. Everyone turned to Mara. Not happening, she said, her voice like steel. The commander's voice returned, almost amused. Then perhaps your own people will make the choice for you. Before Mara could process the words, an explosion ripped through the aft corridor. Alarms screamed. Smoke poured into the bridge. From the haze, one of her crew, Lieutenant Calder, stumbled in. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with blood. They've breached Section E. We can't hold them. Mara pointed to the core. Rin, help Kareth get that to the secure bay. Rin nodded quickly, moving to Kareth's side. Come on, we don't have time. The two vanished into the smoke. Mara turned back to the helm, barking orders to maneuver through the storm. For several tense minutes, they fought to keep the ship alive. Then Derek's voice came from the engineering bay. Captain, the secure bay's empty. The core's gone. Mara froze. What do you mean gone? I mean it's not there, Derek shouted, and Rin's not answering his comm. Realization hit her like ice water. Rin hadn't been injured. He'd been waiting for a chance. Kareth's voice came over the internal channel, calm but edged with anger. Your man serves the Dominion. He took the core. Mara's stomach twisted. Where is he now? Kareth paused, listening to something only he could hear, a faint hum from the alien tech embedded in his armor. Docking Bay 2. He's leaving the ship. Mara didn't hesitate. She grabbed her sidearm, and sprinted for the bay, Kareth at her side. They burst into the docking bay just as Rin climbed into a small escape craft. The core was in his lap, its blue light casting eerie shadows on his face. Rin, Mara shouted, don't do this! Rin's expression was cold. You don't get it, Captain. The Dominion isn't the enemy. They're the future. This history you're trying to spread, it's dangerous. It will start wars. Billions will die for pride and revenge. Kareth's voice was like a blade. And you would erase the truth to keep tyrants comfortable? Rin's jaw tightened. Sometimes survival means letting the past stay buried. He hit the ignition. The escape craft's engines roared to life. Mara raised her pistol, but the craft's shield shimmered to life, blocking the shot. In seconds, Rin launched out into the storm, vanishing into the churning clouds. Kareth stepped forward, his gaze hard as steel. He's taking it to the Vorash. Once it's there, the core will be destroyed. Mara's voice was low, steady, and full of determination. Then we go get it back. Kareth gave a slow nod. Understand this, Captain. Retrieving it will cost us. The Dominion will throw everything they have at us, and if we fail, no one will ever know why your world became a legend. Outside, the shadow of the Vorash loomed larger, its massive hull glowing with weapon fire. The hunt for the truth had just turned into a race against time. Legends in the making. The storm outside raged like a living thing, lightning clawing across the darkness, wind screaming at the edges of the Odyssey's hull. But inside the bridge, everything was silent, tense, cold, the air thick with the weight of what had to be done. Rin had the memory core. The Vorash had him now. Mara stood over the holo map, tracing a path toward the Dominion flagship. Its silhouette filled the display, massive, predatory, built for war. Even without Kareth's warning, she could feel it. The Vorash wasn't just a ship, it was a fortress. We can't fight that thing head on, Derek said quietly. We'd be dust before we reached weapons range. Mara's eyes shifted to Kareth. Then how do we get in? Kareth studied the map, his silver gaze sweeping over its details. He pointed to a narrow section along the underside of the ship's hull. Maintenance access. It's old. Few know it exists. We enter through there, and the storms will hide our approach. Derek frowned. Even if we make it in, the core's probably in their secure vault by now. Kareth's expression didn't change. Then we take it before they can destroy it. The vault is near the command deck. Mara knew what that meant, cutting through the heart of the Dominion's most dangerous warship, with nothing but stealth and luck to keep them alive. But there was no hesitation in her voice when she said, "We're doing it." The Odyssey dropped lower into the storm, shields sparking under the pressure. In a small shuttle, Mara and Kareth prepared for the run. No heavy armor, no squad, only what they could carry and move fast with. As they strapped in, Kareth spoke without looking at her. If we succeed, you must be the one to carry the core out, not me. Mara's brows furrowed. Why? Because the moment the Dominion sees me, they will hunt me. But you are human. They will underestimate you until it is too late. The shuttle detached, swallowed instantly by the storm. Kareth piloted with steady hands, weaving between violent bursts of lightning that could fry a ship's systems in seconds. Through the chaos, the black underside of the Voresh came into view, huge, ancient, scarred by old battles. There, Kareth said, pointing to a dark seam in the hull. Hold on. The shuttle's magnetic clamps locked onto the surface with a deep thud. Kareth moved first, slipping into the access hatch like a shadow. Mara followed, her heart hammering as they entered the eye of the beast. The maintenance corridors were narrow and dim, lit by flickering strips of red light. The air smelled of metal, oil, and something faintly acidic. Voices echoed in the distance, Dominion soldiers on patrol. Kareth led the way, moving silently, every step calculated. Mara followed close, gripping her rifle tightly. At every corner, Kareth would pause, listening for the faint hum of security drones. Twice they had to press flat against the wall as patrols passed. Finally, they reached the vault door. It was a towering slab of reinforced alloy, guarded by 2 soldiers in black armor. Kareth didn't hesitate. In one motion, he drew his glowing blade and stepped forward. The fight was fast, brutal. 2 strikes, 2 bodies down. Mara stepped over them, accessing the vault's controls. I'll need 30 seconds. Make it 10, Kareth replied, standing guard. The vault door hissed open. Inside, the memory core rested on a pedestal, its blue light pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. Mara stepped forward, but Kareth's hand shot out, stopping her, his gaze locked on a second figure emerging from the shadows. It was Rin. He looked at Mara, then at Kareth. I told you. This truth will burn the galaxy. Kareth's voice was low, dangerous. Better a galaxy in flames than a galaxy in chains. Rin's hand moved toward his pistol, but Mara was faster. A single stun shot dropped him to the floor. She grabbed the core, its light spilling across her fingers. The moment she touched it, alarms blared throughout the Voresh. They know we're here, Mara said. They always did, Kareth replied. Now run. They tore through the corridors, the sound of boots and gunfire chasing them. Mara's lungs burned, but Kareth never slowed, cutting down every soldier who blocked their path. At the shuttle hatch, he stopped. You go, he said. Mara froze. What? No. They will not stop following while I am with you, Kareth said firmly. I'll hold them here. You take the core. You tell the galaxy the truth. Mara's throat tightened. Did be. If you stay, you'll die. Kareth gave the smallest of smiles. Perhaps. But if the truth lives, so do I. Before she could answer, he pushed her into the shuttle and slammed the hatch. Through the small viewport, she saw him turn toward the oncoming Dominion soldiers, blade glowing brighter than the lightning outside. Then the shuttle's engines roared, pulling her away, deeper into the storm. She didn't know if she would ever see him again, but she knew one thing: Kareth was right. Legends were not born in safety. They were forged in the fire of choices like this. The truth returns home. The shuttle burst free from the storm like an arrow from a bow, its hull scorched, its engines groaning. Behind it, the Voresh loomed, its weapons firing blindly into the clouds, searching for prey that was already gone. Mara's hands trembled as she tightened her grip on the memory core. It was warm now, its blue light steady, as if it knew it had survived. But her chest felt hollow. Kareth was still back there, somewhere in the chaos. Course set for Earth, Derek's voice crackled over the comm from the Odyssey. We've cleared the storm. Bring it home, Captain. Mara didn't answer. She looked back one last time toward the swirling clouds. For a moment, just for a heartbeat, she thought she saw a flash of blue light far inside the storm, like a blade cutting the darkness. Then it was gone. When the Odyssey returned to Earth, the ship was met not with questions, but with suspicion. The Galactic Media Council wanted to know why they had entered Dominion space, why they had risked so much for a relic. Mara didn't wait for permission. In the main hall of the United Earth Assembly with the cameras of 100 worlds on her, she placed the core on the central console. "This is not a weapon," she said, her voice steady but carrying to every corner. "It is the truth, and to you. The galaxy deserves to hear it." The core lit up, projecting its memories for all to see, the dying Valorian cities,